not to sit still particularly well. But nice.
I can relate to that actually.
Speaker.
When I taught, I think
Right.
it was the joke. Attention to proximity. And I think the kids had the owls and keep watching that. It was always like, it was just, I can't sit still. And so this will be hard.
They can start.
Okay. But I can relate to that. So like if you start moving, I'll move to the other side.
It'll be.
Differentiated groups, you're gonna be over, right? I understand.
Well, the audio is moving.
Going out, checking the YouTube channel to see if you can hear everything.
Oh, sure.
So the little audio thing is moving up and down, so it should be able to
Okay,
hear.
we're good.
Okay. So we're getting ready to start bargaining for our first time in the school year. And I thought maybe what we could do is just go around and introduce ourselves so that everybody knows who everyone is. My name is Tracy McConnell and I am the incoming president for PCTA.
This one.
Yeah, why don't we go? Okay.
I'm Brendan Piggott. I'm the incoming vice president for PCTA.
Congrats.
Thank you.
I'm Bernadette Lanciotti and I'm starting my 23rd year at Northeast High School.
Oh, okay. McNamee, interested third party, Knowles Park Middle School.
Great.
Jennifer Diaz, Pinell Central Trade.
Carly Spicer, Senior Compensation Analyst.
Dave Richmond, the Director of Payroll.
Gary Jefferson, Chief Financial Officer.
Mike Biggie, Chief Human Resources Officer.
Stephen Collins, Executive Director, HR.
Pause 1 second. That seat that's empty is Allison Hearn, our staff attorney. She's the other person that's on our team, but she has a vacation this week. Enjoy your vacation. We weren't going to Zoom her in, so she's here, but not really here. So
You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, Karen Goldino, Skycrest Elementary observing.
And Paula Stevens, PCTA, PESPA staff.
Shannon Hobb, Skycrest Elementary.
Janet Cunningham, PCTA Executive Board, Calvin Hunsinger.
All right. So I know that we had a discussion before we started, and I know that you had a couple of pieces of language and we had a few pieces of language. So if it's okay, we could start with that.
sure.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and hand you. Take it over there. Well, we need like pass it this way too. Because it's not fair. So this has to do with the bereavement leave that we had that had sunsetted. Or was it sunset? And I know that Lee was talking about the cost of the bereavement leave. And that it wasn't as much as the district was originally thinking that bereavement was going to be. And we had said that we were going to revisit it. So I would be interested in increasing the bereavement leave from 1 day to 3 days. And I guess part of the reasoning that I have behind that is just that a couple of things is that one, not every person that has somebody pass away will actually use the bereavement time anyway. I mean, I can use myself as an example. My father passed away in May of this year and I didn't take any bereavement. Like it was during testing and I continued to work. So that, you know, but at the same time, if your head is not in that space to be at work, I don't think it's in the best interest for students, for teachers to be in front of kids when they can't handle that.
So I don't know if we got a cost out or if you had received a cost out. So what we're going to do is receive that article and set it aside, potentially do a cost out and come back to you afterwards. I'm not going to make a decision right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you. And I knew you were going to bring a couple articles. So I appreciate receiving that.
Perfect. And then here is another one that I wanted to give to you.
Okay.
Actually, I should pass you with somebody. 6. So one of the things I forgot to do actually on some of them is I forgot to write the date that we were giving it to you, as well as that it was PCTA at the top.
Understood.
So if you could please just add that, that would be amazing. So this one that I am giving to you is teacher contracts. One of the things that I learned really quickly whenever I was first coming in June, because we had so many non-renewals, and you and I actually had a conversation about this early on, because you had asked me, like, what was I thinking about the non-renewals? Is that in sitting down in the non-renewals is we have already a non-renewal process, but there are so many people that are going through the process. And in talking with some of those teachers and in listening to them speak, there were so many teachers that had effective or highly effective scores, and they didn't have like official discipline. They had never gone through a success plan process with their administrator. What I would like to see change is to make it so that the area superintendents are approving of the non-renewal before the person becomes an official non-renewal. I think that that would help with the appeals process. We wouldn't have as many. I think that it would help grow teachers because they would be having more conversation with their administrators when there is any kind of issue. They would be able to address it through creating a success plan with their administrator, which would make them stronger teachers for the students that are in front of them, as well as it would help grow administrators because they would be having those conversations with their area superintendents. Yes.
This is in response, I mean, this year we had 165 non-renewals. The year before that, we had 168 non-renewals. And I believe that was double the year before that. It's becoming an increasingly like bigger problem, especially for annual contracts, because we don't feel job security in this field right now. Any administrator at any time, if he doesn't like you or she doesn't like you, they can not renew you without any cause. We're not saying to get rid of that system, because I personally do believe some teachers should be not renewed sometimes. That should be a thing that happens. But when you're an annual contract, and I'm sure we saw this in the survey as well, people are feeling really uneasy about the current environment in this district. And to be told that, you know, at any moment, depending on who my boss is, I could be let go at the end of the year. And that's not guaranteeing me a job next year because I still have to apply to new schools. So just an extra step, extra bit of oversight here, just to ensure a little protection for people who do get highly effective evaluations, who don't have any discipline, just a little bit of extra protection.
Anything else to add? So appreciate and receive it, and we'll talk about it as a team before responding, but I'll just add this. I have one clarifying question first for Tracy or Brandon, whoever wants to answer it too. What would the process look like to confirm that the area superintendent approved it? What are you suggesting for a process?
It could.
You know where I'm going with that? Does that make sense?
No, I understand. It could be just a simple, we could create a little form or like a. So let me ask you this. I guess whenever teachers are non-renewed with the district, do the principals keep track of them? Like how many people they are not renewed?
The reason why I went to process is so there's what goes in contract, right? And then there's things that exist outside of the contract that don't need to go in the contract. And so the process is the area superintendent or chief already reviews it with the principal. We don't have a form that goes and says, I reviewed these four. That's a dialogue between the principal who says, I've got these two people I'm tracking. It's a situation where I may have to non-renew them. And they discuss that prior to the non-renewal receiving the HR. Right? I don't want to create another form for another form, but I can tell you that it's already occurred.
Well, I mean,
that's why I'm not trying to push back on it because it's a process that already exists. Prior to getting to where we may have appeal meeting that you were, thank you for sitting through those too. It's a good experience, right?
It was a huge learning experience, actually.
Sure.
I think that we could do something where it's just like a list, right? Like the names of the people that have been.
Yeah, I think that the non-renewal list, when asked for, is granted. We gave that, I don't know, we went directly to Tracy later, I don't know if the time it went, but if we asked for it, we're gonna give you that list like we did. And I would believe that that list is sufficient because the area superintendent or chief, because there is some of the schools report directly to a chief, just for your knowledge. They've already reviewed that and understand the why for the request for the non-renewal before it gets to HR. And so I'll bring it back. We'll talk as a team and bring it back. Those are my reservations on first blush. So,
Okay.
Okay.
No, I hear you. I just want to, like, I know in the conversation that we had.
Yeah.
You were telling me whenever you were the area superintendent, that you had a conversation with an administrator that had like several, and you were able to kind of talk them down off of some of them to where there was like.
Every one of them I reviewed, every
Yes.
single one of them, because that was my job and it was an expectation of area superintendents. And so if, I'll use Janet because she's smiling. If Janet had served up one potential non-renewal, she and I reviewed it before I said, I understand. And if Bernadette had served up 10, which I would say, are we sure, Bernadette? Seems like that's a problem over there too. We reviewed all 10. It was, the process was the same, whether it was one or more. And in the situation of Bernadette, who I know would never nominate 10 people, I would look very carefully and say, I think we've got a culture issue. I need to not renew that many people. And so we would go more scrutinizing for every single one of them to get to a point where the principal needs to maybe sometimes say, you know what, I need to reconsider that too. Because sometimes they do get stuck in a rut and need to have somebody else look at it objectively at that time. So the process already exists.
Mhm.
Is there variance in process? I'm sure there's variance in every process, but I can tell you I was very thorough about it because it was expected of me in my job. And at the same time, he's an area superintendent. If I had that conversation with the principal in February, I don't expect that's the first time I've heard of the problem. I don't need to be involved if it's a reoccurring thing, if it's building throughout the year, but I don't want to be surprised by it. You're sitting here in April or March giving me a list of names that I didn't realize it was an issue. Right.
Mhm.
At the same time, the area superintendent can't be in every classroom every day.
Yeah.
You recognize that there's a lot of schools they serve. So let me take that with the team there in one of the caucuses, review it, unless there's other suggestions that come out of the conversation. But thank you for bringing those two articles.
All right.
I have one question on that.
Yeah.
I just want to go first, Paul. You go first.
My, just my thoughts of being involved in the appeals the last 2
Yeah.
years. I believe this year we saw in the appeals process more teachers who had been in the district over 5 years, that it seemed more of a shock to some of them that this
Yeah.
would even happen. So I think part of it is looking for more of a communication piece.
Noted. I don't have the data. Sometimes it feels fresh here and I don't have the data versus a year ago versus right, but noted. I understand. I do. And I firmly believe that if you, even if it's painfully honest in communication, it takes care of things in the front end in so many different ways, right? There's nothing, what do they say, clear as kind, right? That happened with everybody all the time. We certainly would have less problem. Probably wouldn't need this book,
Yeah.
right?
I just think that, like, to me as a teacher, and I'm not an annual contract teacher.
Right.
But I know that if I had an administrator come to me and say, I think that we should work a success plan out together.
Yeah.
That's gonna shock me into a realization like, holy cow, I could be non-renewed.
Or
I
there's
need to
performance
fix
issues that
this.
maybe I wasn't even aware of, right?
Yes, or if I'm walking in and the principal says to me, you know what, you're not really paying much attention to what's happening with these kids over here. You need to fix it. And I don't hear back from them. I may think that I have fixed it.
Yeah.
But if you pull me into the office and say to me, okay, we're gonna have to have a coaching memo here because you're not doing this over here,
Understood.
right?
And the thing I would add to that too, and I won't get into the 1% rule, but there's, you are where you are because you were far better than average. So what would have really shocked you as a capacity may not shock someone else, who might not be as acutely aware of their abilities in the classroom, right?
Yeah,
And the same
I
thing
understand.
happens at administrative level and every level as well. You are where you are because you're really good at what you did. Not just really good, but great at what you do. I was in your classroom, I understand that, right?
Yeah.
And so you would have been like, oh my word, right? Whereas
Yeah.
maybe someone else would have maybe been like, no big deal. And I'm not saying, one person versus another, but typically people who are really good at it would be, you're bothered if you're not on your best every second. So that would have been, right?
Yeah.
But it might not be as effective as someone else. So,
Mr. Diggio,
yes, sir.
you had mentioned your policy, reviewing non-renewals with the administrator, and we had our anecdotes and all that. My only question is there PCS policy for area superintendents to conduct this review process? Like, is it uniform by area superintendent?
Procedure, not policy. It's not written in board policy. It's a procedure that's expected of the area superintendents and chiefs from ELT to right in front of the year and reminded multiple times throughout the year as well.
All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome, but you're not gonna look it up, see the board policy, nor is you wouldn't see it at work this time too. But it's a good reminder. And as you start to see, I'll end with this, Tracy, clear as kind, you guys don't need all this, but I send everything that I send to schools.
Mhm.
She gets it once a week. I took a little 2-week hiatus. I'm being kind to people. I'm pushing quite as much stuff off, a little bit of a summer. But if the principal's gonna get it, if the assistant principal's gonna get it, if the secretary's gonna get it, if it's something as a reminder, hey, you got the end of the quarter coming up, don't forget, or this is happening, make sure you get this turned in, make sure you work with, whether it's association, union related or not. Every week I forwarded that right on to Lee and now I'm forwarding right over to Tracy. So because communication does matter, right? And who gets it and why do they get it? When do they get it? It helps everybody get along better and understand what's expected too. So good point.
And then if you look down on Article 35 teacher contracts, you can see where it says G, length of instructional contracts. That was one of the ones that we had that was going to sunset. And this is the one that says that you guys will pay the fee for all instructional employees to renew their teaching certificate with the state of Florida Department of Education. We would like to renew that so that it would we could look at it again next year, having it sunset July 1st of 2027. But I know that that's probably something that you need to cost out. Am I right?
Yes, I do.
See, it's like I'm reading your mind.
That's a scary place to be. I told you I'm a squirrel. Both received, both will get back after we get a chance to caucus and review that as well. And it might be at this session or it might be at a later session as well. Yeah, well done.
Okay,
Other articles? Want to pick me from on?
and then we have. Wait. So this came as a result for me also watching the non-renewal process and sitting in and listening to teachers and then just coming back and reflecting on some of the things that really truly surprised me and made me think how I would feel if I was an annual contract teacher. This has to do with the article about terminal pay. We previously had that terminal pay and affects teachers whenever they would retire early. And instead of it just being retirement, I would like for us to look at including it to be non-renewal or resignation. I know that for administration and for students especially, it is really important for teachers to be at school. And you want teachers to be in school and for us to be there as much as possible because that's what's best for the students. So as a result, teachers can hold on to their sick leave and they can bank their sick leave. Well, what's happening whenever teachers wind up leaving the district is it becomes difficult for them to recap any of the money that they have banked from their sick leave. So I think coming into Pinellas County as a new teacher, especially knowing that the district is shrinking and knowing that I could be non-renewed at any time, I don't know that I would be looking to bank any of my sick time. And so I feel like if we make some of the changes around terminal pay with regards to sick leave, it can still be an incentive for teachers to bank sick leave. Yes,
I understand as well, this last semester, a discipline issue was in fact people taking unpaid days. I do think if the policy like this was in place, people would be incentivized to not take days at all because they could cash out if they need to at a percentage, not at the full price, but at a percentage, knowing, hey, if you don't take your 10 days this year, you will get some of that back if you choose to resign or get.
Without getting into the specifics of the situation, I don't want to know school or name words. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on your first two sentences, just like.
The idea of getting disciplined for it?
Yeah, you reference a situation. I got a little lost there in the first couple sentences.
Well, I know a particular teacher who was non-renewed, but his appeal was granted. I think you know what I'm talking about with that one. And that's because he was taking unpaid days. However, there was a meeting we had at the union with the executive board. It was a problem for other teachers, from what I've been told, that they were getting disciplined for taking unpaid days. So we were telling our members at one point, just be aware, taking unpaid days can lead to discipline.
Thanks for the clarification. What that without sharing the specifics.
So just one caveat to that. So the policy is people have to use all the leave that they have as appropriate before being paid. So that would mean, somebody had exhausted their.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
but I think what causes that to happen is if you're somebody like me and you have kids, you're using your sick leave whenever you need to. But if you're somebody that doesn't have family, or your kid is like never sick, which that happens sometimes too, you have the ability to bank that sick leave. And then if something happens, you could realize that you now could very well be out of sick leave. Like, I banked all of this time, I saved all of this, and now this is at a loss to me. Like, I was trying to help my students and help my school, but as a result now, I'm out all the time that I had.
I understand the benefits of a potential benefit. I understand.
Yes.
I do. It's received. So
And, oh, that is true. Janet just pointed out, because we did do research on this. There are other counties that actually have this exact language around terminal pay. Yeah. And then we have another one that sort of goes with that. That this was actually Brennan's idea. And,
Oh, yeah.
right, this
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
and it's actually a really good idea, I think, as far as sick leave. I think that these are some ways. These are some ways that it will encourage people to be at school, which will help students, but at the same time, gives people an opportunity to have a benefit in their sick time. Like, there's more of a benefit to saving sick time, especially knowing that the district is shrinking. So you want to share what this option is, Brennan?
So I don't think this would go, like, I think it would be either the terminal pay option, or this one was giving some options here of what it could look like. But this is, hey, if you have at least 3 years of service, and we got this, I believe, from a different district, I believe. Broward County already does this. So employees with at least 3 years of service at the board may elect to receive sick pay for unused sick time. So we have it set that at the end of the school year with your 10 days, you can cash that in if you want. You don't have to bank it. You can cash it in for up to 80% of its value. Obviously, we'd be willing to negotiate the percentage there, but a way for people to get some money back for the time they chose not to take that year.
anything else?
Also, just noticing to point out that these are employees that have been with the district for at least 3 years of
Not
service.
just anyone.
And you did share that before you could cash out anything, you would have had to have had 10 days banked.
That's the other part. You have to have 10 days already banked. So you can't just, have 0 out. You can't 0 out.
Understood.
And I'm gonna just point out to you that there's gonna be some people like me whose kids get sick all the time, and it's like near impossible to bank sick leave. So. And then,
A concern with this is when staff members that have banked sick leave time, annual contract teachers hear that there have been non-renewals of people who've lost a significant amount of sick leave time that they've banked, that those individuals won't continue to bank their time, that they'll take the 10 every year, which could have significant issues within the school operation.
Understand. Thank you.
and then this is our very last one. And this one is actually pretty simple with no cost. So I know that you'll work. And this is actually, it just extends out a little bit of what you guys already do. This has to do with whenever there is discipline in the past, and what we currently do is that if somebody is going to be going to OPS for discipline, that the employee will be provided upon request the general nature of the issue to be discussed, but is not entitled to be informed of any specific allegation information. What we would like to do is just add on to this, that if they are having a disciplinary meeting with an administrator, that they can be told kind of like what it's in regards to, but not the allegations and stuff. Just adds on to that, because we know that there are levels of discipline that can happen at the school level. And I will tell you the relationship that I had with my administrator, Ms. Kanata, at the school. If there was a teacher that was getting an email to come for discipline or to come for anything, truly, teachers were nervous. Nobody likes to get called to the principal's office. Even as an adult, principal's office is scary, right? So I would just go down and I would talk to her and I would say, you know, so-and-so is like really feeling uneasy. You sent them this email. And she never had a problem sharing that information with me. So that way I could talk to that teacher to kind of just put their mind at ease a little bit before we went in to talk about whatever the discipline was.
She's not that scary. She's excitable. She's not that scary.
She's not that scary.
She is excitable.
But for some people, like getting called to the office is traumatic.
I get it, trust me. Received all 5.
Yes.
I'm gonna hold on to them and move on to the next portion if that's it's comfortable. If there's any other questions, or anything else you want to add, I can take notes as well.
Paula, did you have anything that you wanted to add about the discipline?
No.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the thorough presentation. It's very helpful.
All right.
We'll be on your back. I'd like to get into salary. If you're comfortable with that. I'm not gonna bring any articles today at all.
Oh, I thought you told me that you wanted to bring articles.
Well, there's a couple we may bring, but I'm not certain that I want to open any of the articles because this is an open book year. So we will review these and get back to you because open book was last year. So as you know, we have to agree to open articles, but I wanted to see what you brought. I contemplated bringing 1 or 2 minor edits. And the more I thought about the one minor edit, it might not even be necessary. So I'd like to add language in for unnecessary reasons, but it doesn't mean we won't bring it back up during one of the bargaining sessions or the time we revisit these.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you as well. So on the salary side, if we're okay to segue into that, nobody needs a break. Good? Good.
Good.
Hanging in. All right, good. So I've been told I have long meetings and tend to push through. So if you need a little break, you just gotta wait a minute. I'd like to turn to that, and we obviously want to address the teacher salary increase allocation first, and then maybe some other parts of it too, because we are ready to not necessarily start off in the weeds, but get in the weeds with salary review. Okay. And what I would like to hear if you had brought a proposal first before Gary and I started talking about what the Pinellas County Schools use TSIA at, and gets into those rules as well. So I'll give you an opportunity first before we start, so it's your call.
Well, I think since we did the language first, I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and start with this. We have some ideas, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, spot on too. So we're gonna take this in a couple different ways, and Gary and I will have a couple handouts for you. And so he's the expert on finance. I'm just the HR guy. I try to fake it sometimes, but I'm not as smart as Gary on my best day. But one of the things that we spend an enormous amount of time is really diving into the teacher salary increase allocation with the new legislation of how that needs to be allocated, right? And so before we get into that, and we'll get to that, I do want, sometimes these initial salary sessions, and I, clear as kind, start off with a gloom and doom, and it's awful, and the world's falling apart, and the sky is falling, and we might not even be able, and we do not want to do that today. I think that if you just pay attention to what's going on, you're intelligent enough to realize that we're in a unique situation as it relates to money being spent versus money coming in, right? And I'm not here to judge this, whether it's a state or us or taxpayers or any of that too. We are in a challenging situation, and it may not be much better or worse than we were a year ago, but we do want to get to a point where we offer some salary opportunities for you. So with that said, I'm going to kick it to Gary, who's going to spend a few minutes giving you, and I got a handout I'll walk over for you to see a little bit about just a summary of the FEFP for the last couple of years. It's not 10, 12 documents. I promise you, if you want extra information, we can get that for you. If you watched the budget workshop yesterday, I believe this document was only 105 pages. Gary, is that what that was? I joke when I say that, but he spent yesterday prepping the board for understanding what our budget is as of right now. And so as he kicks it off, I'll come bring it up. I made 7, so I don't know what to do here. You can start. There's one extra, and you guys can fight over it. I don't know. Okay. I'm gonna be fine for one between two, and right, figure it out. Okay. Thank you. Sir.
So I think in the past, we have gone through and talked about the FEFP, talked about calculation, talked about the methodology that the state goes through to fund school districts in Florida. We spent lots of time going through all of the nuances and the pieces of that formula. I think that what you picked up from the news is that that generally education wasn't the real priority at the state level. We didn't get a budget. We don't have a budget signed as of today. And so, you know, even though there's been the proposal put forward, and that's what, of course, we're working on, you know, there's no guarantee that the governor won't veto certain pieces of it and have affect us in various ways, you know, so all that's out there. And I just say that in the standpoint that just like you get, nobody wants uncertainty, we don't want uncertainty, and that's exactly what we continue to have. This schedule kind of shows over the last 6 years or so previous to now, what has happened in the district as far as student populations and general FEFP funding. So of course, FEFP is the method that we receive all of our, the majority of our funding, right? There's still title grants, there's still capital dollars, there's still money that comes in outside of this, but this is the money that basically is the general fund. You know, this is the main checking account of the district. And so this is kind of like where we start. Right at the very beginning, I think it's important to know that, you know, the last 3 years have been really complicated for the district as the student population has really taken a dive, you know, and that's for multiple reasons that we continue to talk about, everything from lower birth rates throughout the county, increased population age, no ability to create additional housing. The housing that is being created is being brought in at a price level that isn't supportive of new families. The downtown St. Pete rebuilding effort isn't affordable to regular people. And all of that affects us. And then if you do work in Pinellas County, a lot of times you're living in Manatee or Sarasota or Pasco or Hillsborough. And of course, we don't get those students, right? So even though the economic ability of the county continues to grow, property tax values continue to grow, we don't see the population, right? We don't get any value from that. And so you really start to see that, you know, what really happened, we all know in like the 23-24 era is really where that started, a little bit before that. But we also had the increase or the change in the way that the scholarships work, the way that the Family Empowerment Scholarship works in the state. And what happened, of course, is that they took away the income limits, right? And so they allowed any family basically in the state to get that $9,000, whatever the amount is that everyone gets, and be able to use that for whatever it was. If it was to support a homeschool endeavor, or if it was to give to the private school that they were already going to. The impact of that is that it has taken away funds from the state, and it's given families an incentive to join that program, you know, at the detriment of our traditional student population. The other problem that we had is that last year, and this became big news, nothing really came of it, but we found out that Step Up, which is the organization that manages the scholarship program for the state, wasn't able to account for all the funds. You know, and so last year, the 24-25 fiscal year, the state ran out of money, right? They couldn't even pay us the last of our FEFP money because they had overpaid on the scholarship side. And so they had run out of money to the tune of $40 or $50 million. They eventually, that following year, appropriated those funds and paid the majority of those funds back to the districts, but they ran out of money. They didn't manage the program, and they ran out of money. And so then this year, what happened, the year that we're just ending, you know, in a week from now, Step Up came under criticism because there were a lot of students that were taking space in public schools, but were also taking scholarships. And so unfortunately, the way the statute is written is that the scholarship program takes precedence over traditional funding of traditional public schools. And so in the case that we had 800 or 900 students that were in both buckets, the state allowed those parents generally to keep those funds, and they took the funds away from us. And so we ended up, this has been part of various board discussions and workshops and the board meetings. But we lost on the tune of $13 to $15 million last year, because about half of it was because of double counting, right? 800 or 900 students that we lost because of that. And then the other piece is that when the state calculates what our funding is going to be, the state is the one that comes up with the estimates of our students. So early in the year, you know, like now we're getting ready for next school year, January, that we started working on the student populations that we were going to be funded on going into this next school year. And the state comes up with those values. We get 8 or 9 different models from the state, and they say, pick and choose which one you like. There's nuances to them, but the variation may be maybe dozens or hundreds of students. They're very close in the student populations. And so we pick the one that we feel is going to be the most appropriate. And typically for us, it's the one that shows the greatest student loss. And that is our entire ability to affect our funding. So the state says, you're going to have, in this case, I think last year they said you're going to lose 3,000 students or 3,200 students. And then they fund us on that. So then we take our funding and we say, this is how many teachers we can pay. This is the support staff we can pay. This is the district staff we can pay. This is all the components of that. And then, you know how survey weeks work, right? In October and February, we verified the number of students that we really had. And then what does the state do? They take our real numbers compared to what they estimated, good, bad, or indifferent, and they take the money back from us, right? So this year, we lost an additional 1,300 students over and above what our estimate was. Now, a portion of that was double counting, and another substantial portion was the fact that the state guessed wrong, right? They estimated wrong. And there's lots of reasons for that. We had a lot of, there were various things, migration issues, there's political climate. There were other things that affected us. And so all of those things came into play when we looked at last year, and we see that 25-26 year, we lost 4,120 students. That's 5% of our entire student population, more than that. And what that meant is that we only anticipated losing 3,000. The state didn't fund us on 4,100 students, right? So we ended up in a deficit this year that we didn't plan on, and we managed that by selling some assets and keeping laps longer, not hiring people at as fast a rate as we wanted to, controlling costs, a variety of ways. But it put us behind $13-14 million over the year that we didn't think about. We went into this last year saying, okay, we're gonna lose $20 million, and then we really lost, $30 million, $35 million, and so we dealt with that. So then you get to this year, and the state comes up with their estimates. We think that they're still too high, too optimistic. And so, but we take that as what it is. So the state said we're going to lose 3,200 students, 3,177 students this year. That's what the state says we're going to lose. We think it's 3,400 students, but we're going to the money we're going to get from the state is based on 3,177 student loss. So when you look at that, I just want you to be understanding of that. Also note that the FES scholarships, that second number, is now almost 19,000 students, right? 19,000 students are taking $9,000 scholarships and doing whatever they want with them according to whatever the state rules are. But that isn't money that we get, right? $170 million is what we should have, but we're not getting because there's a scholarship program in place. So school choice is what it is, but this is just money that would have been here, but isn't. So when we look at any questions just on that first line of the student population. Okay, so then we kind of go down to the bottom, the total state and local funding. And some of this is interesting, and I didn't put enough detail on here to show it, but Trish, you saw at the board meeting, the board workshop yesterday, we talked about the portion that the school district or the local county pays in property tax. And so although we get $912 million allocated through the FEFP program, first, we never see any FES money. So that just it never even comes to us. So it's $740 million, $741 million. That's the money that technically comes to us. And just for your own reference, and just because it's important in the context of lots of property tax changes that are being proposed here, about 85% of all of the district's money is paid by local property taxes. The state pays 15%, right? So even though they say you're going to be funded at $741 million, 85% of that is paid by us. And so as you think about property taxes, school districts have now been held harmless, but we're only held harmless in that we still get what our property tax values are supposed to be. We'll get paid on that. But as counties and municipalities lose their property tax base, or the way they fund themselves is going to have to change. The ancillary things that we always have received from the counties and the municipalities, basically for free or at very reduced cost, will very likely go away. And the very first one that we're talking about now is crossing guards, right? That we always get the crossing guards for free. We don't pay for crossing guards. Guess what? We probably have to pay for it, and SROs and school care and nurses, and all of these costs are things that the district is going to have to figure out how to pay. I think that we've tried to think through some of those pieces, but undoubtedly this year and next year are going to be complicated from the standpoint that's like swimming up river, you know? We're trying to make this the best we have. And I think over the last 3 years, we've really made a lot of productive and forward-looking changes. And I think that we're doing better in all of those places. But this doesn't get any easier either. You know, even as we reduce staffing and made other adjustments, we're lucky just to keep bobbing up and down the river. You know, it's definitely hit. So I bring all of that together to show that our funding has decreased technically this year by about $15 million, a little bit more than that. That's just on the FBF piece of it. That doesn't take into account that we're not getting as much from the county. Doesn't mean that we're getting as much from the title grants. Doesn't mean that we're getting as much on food reimbursement program from the federal government, right? This is a very complicated environment, you know, and so we tried to very much just simplify this and show this. One benefit that we do want to show is that as you take our students down and you take the amount of funding that we get down, we do have a little bit more per student, right? We get 1.9% increase. Theoretically, if our students and our teachers and our support staff and our building and our infrastructure, everything was perfectly the same, right? We would get that benefit. That's paid now for higher fuel costs, right? And it has to pay for the other things that we're losing, and our electricity rates are going up, and you know, all that stuff. So we're going to take care of all those pieces, and but I think it's important for us to continue to just really try to be transparent on what the money that comes into the school districts are, and then for there just to be a general understanding that this school district is not any different really than your individual households. That you still have cars you have to drive, you have to have food you have to buy, you have to have supplies that you have to purchase for your house. All of those things are there. If your income only goes up by a little bit, then you have to accommodate. If somebody takes something away from you, you have to accommodate. We got a little bit more money, and we're going to do just absolutely the best that we can. We're always mandated by the board and the superintendent to provide as much compensation to every employee as we're ever able to do. And that's always our mandate. We're told that nonstop. And so just wanted to walk you through that and for you to be able to see some of the big picture numbers. If you ever want to go through the book, you can see the FBFP online. It's 41 pages. Our budget is in board docs. We're a transparent group, and we're never out to try to hide or change what the facts are. So that's my spiel on where we are today with some.
So he's really that person, honestly. He does really good at his job, but I told you we're not going to do a gloom and doom for hours, but I wanted to make sure you saw the gravity of the enrollments, how much money coming in. So we did put a little positive on the end, which I was very happy. We're bringing in more money this year, bringing in more money per kid this year. That's great. Our deficit is not as bad as it was the year before. I'm trying to be tongue in cheek, but we're only 15 million less than every year was a year. And so as we continue to staff to the number of students which we serve at this building, at Waltz Brunel, and at every school site, that actually brings it a little closer, but it's hard to predict, particularly with a 1.9% increase that doesn't mirror inflation in every capacity you could possibly think of too. I have to give our district, and I'll say it on the owl or the peacock here, whatever it is, our district leadership and the foresight to be thinking ahead through progress for planning is trying very hard to stay way ahead of this, because while we're looking at 3,177, I will be shocked if we only decrease by 3,177 this year, because the state has missed the mark in their prediction each of the last several years, not just this year. And so we're thinking that through in every capacity and planning for the worst, so that we don't, if we're gonna have to cut another $8 or $10 million back to the state at the end of survey 2 or survey 3, we're in a place to do so. What I'd like to do is offer up questions to Gary, and if it's okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. Just you guys use the restroom, maybe take about 10 minutes. And I want to come in and talk specifically about TSIA and see what we can go from there. But if you have questions, he's the guru. You got it right here. Please ask.
I did have a question actually, and it kind of sort of goes back to one of the things that I heard yesterday whenever you were speaking. How does the schools closing, how how does that affect the budget? Like, do you guys get money that goes back into the budget? Does that go to pay for some of the loss?
So really what you would see in our budget that was presented yesterday is that, although there's some, those schools were fairly small, so there are some, instruction, some, payroll cost reductions. The real reduction is that you don't have the facility cost to continue to manage and then maintain it. So, we expect, the closing of those two schools was, I don't know, a little more than $1 million total in savings to the district. Again, those aren't very, they were smaller schools, so they're not necessarily representative of what, of everything else that's out there. But so we pick up a little bit. They're shown just as reductions of expenses.
Kids moved, staff moved, right? Might not need 2 CAP managers anymore because we have 1 CAP, right? And so as kids move into other schools, it might add to the staff of some of the operational type stuff for the school and instructional, but it won't be the same as amount. So there is a little bit of savings to staff a little bit too. Think about plant operations, for example, in terms of cleaning a building. They're already cleaning an existing building, so there's some savings.
And then you don't have to pay $15,000 or $20,000 a month for electricity or $1,500 a month for water. Those are the real things. You don't have to maintain the building anymore and do those basic things. So I think that that's where I find the most savings, but it's still not substantial in just 2.
Now, whenever you're talking about like a reduction in force, or not a reduction in force, but like when you're reducing the staff, like, is that through retirement? How are those reductions in staff coming?
Great question too. So that's through attrition, right? And so we have people that leave, we have people that retire, we have people that move in, we have people that move out. We can, from an HR standpoint, almost predict the number of employees that aren't going to return by their own choice, right? And unfortunately, I have to predict some non-renewals too, right? We can see those numbers coming, and we have been steadfast to be able to not use those words you started with, the RIF, because if you are in good standing with us, we're going to find you a spot. And I couldn't be prouder of the HR team, because as of last Thursday, when they emailed me the numbers, we had 2 support people who hadn't found a home yet, 2. And one of them was the HBO at one of the schools that was closing, because you're not going anywhere until the summer's done because they got some stuff to take care of, right? And it was 17 on the instructional side. And we've already placed a few more of those as well. And the only reason we're at 17 is because some of them were in spots where we don't have a spot in their certification yet. And so we're going to either wait for a spot or we're going to double you up somewhere. And we did that on Thursday last week as well. So of the 17, 10 were physical education / health. We had a reduction of units needed in our PE and health teachers, particularly at secondary, but a little bit at elementary as well. More people displaced than we had spots available. And so HR literally opened up units at 10 different schools and attached an extra person to give that person a home now, with the caveat that when a vacancy comes open, we're going to work through the process to take the extra unit and put it back, because we're not just going to send them back and say, good luck finding a spot. So we try to avoid those first 3 words at all costs, right? We do, because that just means we don't have a spot for you. Good luck. We don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
we're pretty proud of it too. So great question.
I'm good unless somebody else has a question.
It's good.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. It's 11, so we'll come back in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Restrooms are literally right across the way. The owl can spin or not. That's a toucan up to you. We'll be back in 10 minutes. We'll go right into the TSI, which I'm excited.
And you have it.
I do.
And I definitely didn't know about that.
Discussion right now. But
And the kids are.
that's a discussion. before the end of the year. District wide.
Especially.
You wanna
Yeah,
talk for an hour?
that's a real concern.
Minutes.
It's on time, 2 hours.
Yes.
I don't like. It.
I love it. I picked the orange out, so now you just.
He's fine. You said it.
Yeah, I should, and I picked the orange matches our colors.
It's all good. Ready?
Yeah.
I held this up. I said 10 minutes. I took 13. That's it. So I want to take full responsibility. So I lack punctuality. And also sincerity there too. So we're gonna start. I just talked to Trace about a couple different things, time permitting. By 12:10, several of us have to get to a new meeting that popped on our calendar, and we're gonna walk kind of awkwardly late, but it's important for us to get there. But prior to leaving today, depending on how far we get, we want to make sure we set another date for the next time, right? I mean, that matters. Otherwise, we're gonna play calendar games forever. And sometimes that doesn't work out so well by email, trying to pull it back together. Okay, so we'll save a couple minutes for that. The first thing I'd like to outline, and I'll pass up like a good teacher, I'm not gonna give you a handout and start talking to you. So I'm talking to you and then give you the handout so you can see it. The teacher salary increase allocation. So I'm gonna talk through it and then you'll get a document in a minute that outlines everything I'm sharing too. We as a district, our portion of the TSIA is 5.9 million prior to the FUPs and the charters taking their piece, FBS, excuse me, coming out, which brings it to 4.1 million. And you literally don't have to write it because every number you're going to get in about 2 minutes. It's entirely up to you whether you're auditory or visual. When you look at the 4.1 million, the way the legislation is written, it literally says that that is to be divided up amongst teachers with 10 or more years of experience in the state of Florida who are classroom teachers. And I'll show it. I cut and paste it right from the 551 page House bill. Classroom teachers, which isn't everyone who's in a 10 or more, right? And we have a lot of teachers that are 10 or more. We have quite a few that are less than. I'll give you those proportions in just a moment. Any numbers of staff members that I give you today is going to change, right? It's a fluid number. It's not going to be the same next week. The numbers he presented at the board workshop literally were pulled 4 days earlier, and it was, we were listening this morning, going, why are we off by a few? Because the number's going to change again tomorrow. It will happen as we get through June, and it will happen in July, and it's going to happen before we lock into the beginning of the school year. We see our enrollments and our staffing, number of people that are employed by us, change throughout the summer and then flatten out a little bit in fall. Okay. So we right now are predicting to have 5,970 full-time instructional employees. When I say instructional, I'm talking about all the non-classroom and the classroom. 5,970, so just shy of 6,000. We believe, and we've done the calculation, 2,835 of which will qualify for TSIA as outlined by legislation. Those are classroom teachers, 2,835 of the 5,970. Those are classroom teachers or certified pre-K, which does include your ISDs and many other folks that are listed as non-classroom, but also in the instructional bucket. We have an additional 722 full-time instructional employees that are not classroom teachers and are not certified pre-K teachers. And then the remainder of that 5,970 is a little over 2,400, 2,413 instructional that are returning that have less than 10 years. So the cut line is the 10 years, and then within it, it's are you classroom or pre-K certified or not? And legislation says it's only able to go to that group, this allotment of money, the $4.1 million. Our estimates, if that number stays the same, so if we started the year and we agree or don't agree to TSIA allocation, which I hope we can because it's law, because if we don't, we'll go to impasse and we have to fight over the ruling of the legislation, which I don't think is necessary in any capacity. When you take $4.1 million and you divide it up by the 2,835, it's a little under 1,500 per person, which includes the fringe capacity of it too, because we have to pay for benefits. It's $1,446.21. When you take away the fringe of 22.24%, It comes out to $1,183 for each of those 2,835 employees. So that's a bit about TSIA. That's how we read the word. I read it verbatim, exactly how it's written in legislation. I don't mind saying that you could ask a lot of different lawyers and they might have a difference of opinions. We've checked with our staff attorney, our school board attorneys. We've checked across the state and they say, we are going to interpret it as it's written. There are other people who may have a variance of that saying, well, we think we could. We're not, and we think we could. And I'll explain why we're not, and we think we could. Because the minute you go with the think we could, it also says that you better prove to us that you're spending every dollar and have that submitted to the state by December 1st. And if you fail to do that, we're going to collect all the money back. Or if you misappropriate in some capacity, the state will collect the money back, which we're not really excited to potentially do. So I'm going to pause there and I'm going to give you about a minute or two to read this document. And then we can talk about finalizing TSIA before maybe getting into some more stuff that might be more.
Yeah, so with what Mike was saying, at the, on your page here, the bottom major paragraph in the big box is the paragraph that is what's called the implementation bill. It's the document provided by the legislature that says this is how you are supposed to use the funds that have been appropriated to you.
So I'm going to give you a minute to process, but it takes a little bit. I mean, I'll go on from there. We ready.
Mhm.
We're ready.
You guys, you did your homework on TSIA, I can tell. The other side that got a little muddy, and that's what made even lawyers scratch their head at first before they was redefined because they passed, is, well, what happened to the old rules when we were assigned, when we reported TSIA money, and we didn't have this going to that group of employees? It was wait and see who, through their evaluation, was effective or highly effective, and they got a proportionate share, right? That's available if, and you'll see it in the top paragraph, I don't know if it says it specifically, if each person who's supposed to get the money, you have left over if everybody gets 3,000. Or not at 3,000. I don't know, maybe some other district has a different level of proportionality, but we just mentioned that it's $1,183. So that previous rule that's still in law is not going to be utilized. There's no TSIA left over to impact other employees that aren't going to receive any money from TSIA because we were mandated by the state. Is that correct?
So I just want to make sure,
Yep.
I'm kind of restating this for anybody that is listening.
Thank you.
So what I hear you saying is that if we had more TSIA funds, then that would mean that there would be more money first going to 10-year plus
Up to
classroom.
3,000 apiece, and then any leftover would have been taken that proportionally across everyone who earned effective or highly effective and going to what we used to do with the leftover.
Okay,
I don't think they're going to turn around and give us an extra allotment of 8 or 9. Janet, you never know. You don't think so? Janet doesn't think so either.
yeah, they're not giving us.
So, first of all, do we agree with the interpretation of the rule? Let's start with that too. And if you need time, we can step out of the room. That's how we read it. It's verbatim.
So I will just say, like, I had a really long discussion with somebody at FEA.
Yeah.
About this, and they said the same thing, that the law is clear on what is considered classroom teacher.
And both of our lawyers said the same thing, and they both were asked independently after checking with different lawyers, our staff and our school board attorney both said, Why would you do that, right? However, you may hear from other districts saying that they're doing it differently, and good luck to them. I know this, if the law says to do A, B, and C, I'm gonna do my best to stay inside A, B, and C, so that we don't go outside the lines here. So agreement there. And the number of employees, that's as of yesterday, right? That will change. And while I would love to think that our enrollment's going to increase, we may have to allocate more teaching units to accommodate that between now and August. I'm not naive enough to think that that's going to be the case. So that number of 2,835 will likely not be the same number. It will likely be something less than that as we start the year. And as we lock it in, once everything's done and we get the school year started and things are ratified and money's flowing, that 1183 is a low water mark. It will go up. But again, it's for that group of people. Does that raise any questions, Tracy, or team?
Yes.
I appreciate the information that you gave out and your description of what the law is.
Yeah.
Your numbers matched what we had done with our research as well. We were very close. We had 28.
Yeah.
So our numbers came in really close.
Here's where it gets tricky, and I wasn't, but thank you, because what about the teacher who changed their teaching assignment, who tomorrow moves into an instructional coaching position? They're not starting off the 26-27 school year in that bucket. And so we have to reevaluate that bucket. It will go down just because we'll have less people, but there may be people that move buckets as a result of the law starting in July. So it's going to be your teaching assignment for next year, not last year. And I think that's going to be on our end and your end a huge communication thing. And I'm not steering somebody away from taking a non-classroom position if they were currently a classroom teacher. But the law says this starts in July, which impacts next year's assignment, not last year.
And I appreciate that clarification as well. I understand that we have to work within the constraints of the law.
Yeah.
And I need to make sure that everyone who's listening live stream also recognizes that.
Spot on.
So our definition of classroom teacher needed to be clarified on there. And also where our years of service are on that.
Yeah.
So our years of service are full years of service with being hired prior to the beginning of the school year, not being hired during the school year. Is that correct or incorrect?
Year, which I think means 9.5 or round it up. I'm going to pause and ask Carly or Dave to give me more on that just in case.
A whole year is computed by your contract divided by 2 plus 1 day.
Can you please say that one more time?
Half year plus a day.
Half a year plus 1 day of whatever your contract is.
So if you in your first year started in October and you didn't complete a full year, but you taught for more than half of the year, that counts as a 1. It doesn't count as a fraction. That's what she's saying. So it's 9.5 to round it up. You get some interesting things with people in and out, right? But thankfully, most people stay for full years, which is a good problem to have. Great.
Just to add to that, that's the same calculation that we use that determines the evaluation, whether or not you receive a salary increase.
So can I ask something? If I am not sure how many years I have been teaching, I know that as a teacher, I could go into employee self-serve. Where would I go to find that? So that way I can look up if I'm not sure if I'm someone that qualifies for this.
It's all listed out right on your pay tab, right?
Except for that will show, like mine shows 19, but I have only been in Florida since 2020.
Yeah.
So
All of Florida.
I'm an LMT, I'm not a classroom teacher, so I don't fall under TSIA.
Yeah. So to clarify,
By the,
our calculation is literally looking at you, not just years of service credit. I came in from another state,
Right.
1.2.
right.
Those will not count. These are.
No, I completely understand that. What I'm saying on ESS, it doesn't show my difference of how many have been in this district versus, it just shows my cumulative, what I get for like my pay rate. So that might not be the most accurate place for someone to go if they are looking for that.
Yeah, we talked about an inquiry. If somebody's like, I'm confused, what if I qualify or not? But
So I don't believe that it shows the total experience is what you're asking for. So when someone arrives in the district and we collect their total years of experience, in our ERP system, we do put out of district, military, any of those things that count in the data that we provided to you. You will see that broken out. So some of the things that we, if you remember, that we have done in the past is we provided you spreadsheets and worksheets so that when you do get those questions, that we work together to answer those questions for folks, because it's not something that's easily sought out on there. Like, we're gonna talk about your Pinellas experience, but your pay at that initial time of employment is based on all of that experience, and they have 1 year from the time of hire to provide that information to us.
So if somebody is struggling and they are not able to figure it out, you would want them to call.
Harley, no, just kidding.
No, they can call any of us, HR partners, and, right, yeah.
All right.
And like I said, we'll always provide you the data that we're looking at as well.
And I don't know if this was said, I think it might have been, but this includes state of Florida years and Pinellas County years. So if someone's moved from another county,
Yeah.
that accumulates to the tenure.
In a public setting.
In a public school, correct, in public school.
I know that one of the things that I want to just say that I'm happy that you put on here really is the law, this information, because we know that there's so many things with teachers, like it's not, you're not, because you're busy and everything's falling off your plate all the time, you don't recognize it until something is hitting you right in the face.
Yeah.
And so I think that the perfect thing about this is we can take this law and we can just put this piece of language right out on our social media. We can take it and we can email that out, because maybe we know that there's gonna be questions.
All right, no question. And we're here to help the communication as well. And
Yes.
you might want to put a note on this. You can see I did a snippet, okay? Because what I didn't want to do is print off the literally 551 pages. And so I think Dave struggles sleeping at night, because he told me he reads through this to keep put himself to sleep. In all sincerity, this is page 25 of the 551 pages. It's literally right there. And so I wanted you to have that, and to your point, let's get that out. Because it is important for everyone to know what the rules are. These were defined for us by law, and we're gonna start with this because it's clean. Yes,
I'm
sir.
gonna ask one clarifying question.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm a teacher for 15 years, 10 of those I did in the classroom, but I switched to being a library media specialist at some point. No. Okay. So
Because it's gonna be based on the assignment. And
What you're-
what
What you're currently at.
what I can't predict is what's gonna happen a year from now when something toggles back and forth, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what they'll do for TSIA next year. You can tell that the state was intentionally trying to, after compressing scales and bringing up new teacher salaries for a number of years, making sure they took care of veteran teachers, and we're gonna follow up. And that's, but I don't know what the law will steer us towards a year from now.
Thank you.
Is that a good pause, segue?
Absolutely.
All right, in essence of time, I'm gonna roll right here. I talked to Janet about this briefly, just wanna make sure we're clear. We're ready to not just speak to the TSIA, which I think at least verbally we all agree to, and we could sign on that today and avoid impasse, right? That's what we're trying to do. And the impasse says that we don't decide, we don't meet by July 1, we already checked that box. If we have to figure it out by July 31st and agree to it, then one of us is saying we're gonna go to impasse and start that process, which I'm sure that's enjoyable, but I think I'd rather avoid that if at all possible. But for the rest of salary, we recognize the need to take care of all of our teachers, all of them. We also recognize the need to take care of all of our employees, all of them. Gary said it, he wasn't joking. Like, if we could give more, we would, like always. And what we're gonna do is push across some numbers to you. And I have another handout, so you might make some notes. You know, we might pause today and you guys can talk and get back to us. But I'll say point blank, as if you've ever gotten to know me, I am nothing but straightforward. What our offer is our highest end offer. It exhausts taxpayer dollars. Thankfully, we had this thing called a rep that doubled last year to a full mill. And if you recall last year, that was the largest pay increase that this district had seen in quite some time, at a time when other districts who didn't double their one millage tax on themselves were sweating it out. And you have districts right now sitting here going, I don't have nothing to offer. We're going to give you an offer, and it's going to be because I want every employee in our district. And we have 3 other bargaining groups, and we have a bunch of other people that aren't bargaining groups to all get some level of a fair compensation increase. Will it be the greatest? No. Will it be better than what's inflation's bringing towards us? Absolutely, okay? So the second part to it, and I'll get to the third part and I'll pause there. The second part speaks to when we look at new money coming in from taxpayer dollars. Because we have a 2% increase on our taxpayer dollar coming in from the referendum, and we have less people. That causes an increase. We're bound by percentages in the ref. If you struggle to sleep, read the Icy Rock, read through it. There's a lot of information there as well. But 70% of that is set aside on instructional, and then there's 2 other buckets for 15% aside. But we have a 2% increase on that. So with less employees and ref staying relatively neutral in terms of our property taxes, assuming that things don't change, that will almost guarantee a salary increase moving forward year over year, which is a good thing. And it's sad, but at the same time, it's at the detriment of us shrinking. So that allotment of money, if applied equally, is I'm pausing. I want to make sure I get this perfect. With an average here and here. If applied across all instructional teachers, would be an average increase of 2.48%, which is in addition to the TSAI money for the 2,800 teachers. And that dollar amount is $1,612. That would be in addition to the TSIA.
Can you please say the percentage again?
Yes, ma'am. Average of 2.48% salary increase across all instructional employees.
And that's in addition to TSIA.
Correct.
So,
And that looks a little different based on years of experience. If you tease it out, that's a higher percentage for someone who's at a lower salary band than someone who's been with us a while too, but an average of 2.48%.
Understood.
so I'm just gonna say one more time. So what you're saying is everybody in the unit would qualify for the 2.48%. And then your classroom teachers that are 10 plus will get this additional $1,183.
Yeah, and the $1,183, I didn't say it earlier, that's an average of 2% salary increase for that group of people too. So the person receiving TSIA would be getting a little over 4.5%. The person without the TSIA would be getting on average just under 2.5% or 2.48. Again, there's variance, right? Depends on how many years. We're trying to do averages, so.
And I think because we are so